You know, there's an old adage that corn can get so high that it can't be harvested correctly. And this was the case with this movie. Although it was the most successful at the time sports movie of the 20th century, it basically was so jingoistic and pro-USA. Internationally, could have made more than $300 million to made, even though it was tremendous money. But Rocky IV, I would think Gary Bergman and Phyllis Mazzito must have wrote this because the hatred for the Soviet system is so prevalent in this movie until its dramatic end. It was almost maybe a precursor to Game 8 against the Russians in the 7th series in 72. I'm not joking. Now, Rocky IV is the third sequel to the Oscar-winning movie Rocky, which came out in 1976. Now, Rocky IV had us versus them mentality. It came out for the Christmas season in November of 1985. I saw it at the Temple Theater in Holton, Maine, and let me tell you something. There's not one Canadian feeling in this movie, despite the fact some of the scenes for the boxing matches were filmed in Vancouver. Now, it started, of course, Rocky of the piece. Sylvester Stallone, again, he directed and wrote it, and all the main actors are back, including Talia Shire, Burt Young, Carl Weathers, and what would be Stallone's girlfriend, Brigitte Nielsen, and the great Dolph Lundgren, who basically looked like every Russian cliche of a steroid-induced athlete from the 70s and 80s, even though at the end he basically said he was fighting for himself and not the state. Now, to date, it is the most financially successful installment of the franchise. It cost $30 million to make, which was big money in '85, but made $300 million at the international box office. Now, in the film, the Soviet Union and its top boxer make an entrance into professional boxing, with the best athlete, Ivan Drago, who initially wants to take on world champion Rocky Balboa. Now, Rocky's close friend, Apollo Creed, who helped him win back the title against Clubber Lang in Rocky III in very dramatic fashion, decides to fight him instead, but is fatally beaten and killed in a ring by Drago. Enraged, Rocky decides to fight Drago in the Soviet Union to avenge the death of his friend and defend the honor of his country. Now, critical reception was mixed, but the film was a huge success at the box office. While the film marked Carl Weathers' final appearance in the series, his character would still be referenced in each subsequent film. Its success led to a Rocky V, released on November 16, 1990. The events of the film also serve as a backstory to the plot of Creed II, where Apollo Creed's son, Adonis, is challenged to fight Drago's son, Victor. And again, that's a very good movie. Like I said, very underrated. So that would be 5, 6, the 8th movie in the Rocky Universe franchise, which proved Mad Magazine right. Now, it's 1985, and Drago, a Soviet boxer, arrives in the United States with his wife, Ludmilla, played by Brigitte Nielsen, a Soviet swimmer, and a team of trainers from the Soviet Union and, of course, Cuba. His manager, Nikolai Koloff, not to be confused with Nikolai Volkov, takes every opportunity to promote Drago's athleticism as a hallmark of Soviet superiority. Motivated by patriotism and an innate desire to prove himself, Creed challenged Drago to an exhibition bout. Rocky has reservations but agrees to train Apollo, despite his misgivings about the match. Meanwhile, Rocky has purchased a robot for his brother-in-law, Paulie. Now, during a press conference regarding the match, hostility sparks between Apollo's and Drago's camps. The boxing exhibition takes place at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, and Apollo enters the ring in an overtop patriotic entrance with James Brown singing his new chart topper, Living in America, probably one of the greatest non-videos in music history, complete with showgirls. Has to be seen to believe. James Brown, Soul Brother #1, is the highlight of the whole movie. Anything that follows is just not as good as this. So if you're going to see the movie, turn it off after James Brown's appearance, because you know what's going to happen. Now, the bout starts safely with Apollo landing several punches that are ineffective against Drago, but Drago suddenly retaliates with devastating effects. By the end of the first, Rocky and his Apollo's trainer Duke plead with him to stop the match, but Apollo refuses to do so and tells Rocky not to stop the match no matter what. Drago continues to pummel him in the second round, and Duke begs Rocky to throw in the towel. Rocky honors Apollo's wishes, which allows Drago to land one final punch on Apollo, killing him, and his wife seeing it in attendance. In the aftermath, Drago displays no sense of contrition, commenting to the assembled media, if he dies, he dies. Now frustrated by the Soviets' cold indifference, Rocky decides to challenge Drago himself, but has to surrender the championship to do so. Drago's camp agrees to an unsanctioned 15-round fight in the Soviet Union on Christmas Day, an arrangement meant to protect Drago from threats of violence as receiving in the States. Rocky travels to the Soviet Union without his wife Adrian due to her disapproval of the match, setting up his training base in a rural remote cabin with only Duke and Paulie to accompany him. Duke opens up to Rocky, stating he actually raised Apollo and that his death felt like a father losing his son, and he expresses his faith in Rocky that he will emerge victorious. To prepare for the match, Drago used high-tech equipment, a team of trainers and doctors monitoring his every movement, and regular doses of what seems to be anabolic steroids. Rocky, on the other hand, does road work in deep snow over mountainous terrain and workouts utilizing antiquated farm equipment. Adrian arrives unexpectedly to give Rocky her support, which gives Rocky a new vigor. Now, these scenes were filmed in Wyoming, which doubles quite well for, not say Siberia, but the colder part of Russia. Is quite effective. Don't know why Wyoming was chosen instead of Montana, but, close enough. Now, before the match begins, Balboa is the first to enter to a hostile crowd. As he waits nervously in the ring, the lights in the arena suddenly go out and Drago is introduced with an elaborate patriotic ceremony with the Soviet General Secretary and the Politburo in attendance. A lot of Soviet tropes. And it actually reminds me of the Go West song by Pet Shop Boys. No joke. Now the home crowd is squarely on Drago's side and hostile to Rocky. In contrast to his match with Apollo, Drago immediately goes on the offensive. Rocky takes a fierce pounding in the first round, but goes on the offensive toward the end of the round after landing a brutal right hook that cuts Drago's left eye, stunning both Drago and the crowd, and Apollo's trainer says he's human, he can be cut. Now Duke encourages Rocky by reminding him that he just proved Drago is a man and not a machine, as he's been made out to be. In contrast, Drago comments to his trainers that Rocky's not human, he's like a piece of iron, after his trainers reprimand him for his performance against the weak American. Now, the two boxers spend the next 12 rounds trading blows, where Rocky managed to continually hold his ground despite Drago's best efforts. As the 12th round begins, the previously hostile Soviet crowd suddenly start chanting and cheering for Balboa. After being berated by Koloff, Drago rebels, throwing him from the ring and directly addressing Gorbachev, and a good impersonation by whoever was doing it, stating he fights only for himself. In the final round, with both fighters exhausted, Rocky initially takes more punishment, but manages to stay on his feet. Both fighters trade blows before Balboa seizes an opening, unleashing a series of vicious counters, eventually knocking Drago out and avenging Apollo's death. Now Rocky gives a victory speech while holding an American flag, acknowledging that the local crowd's disdain of him had turned to mutual respect during the fight. Rocky says we're better than killing millions and seeing two men killing each other in the ring. He said, if I can change, I didn't feel you were appreciating me or loving me, but if I can change and you can change, everybody can change. The Soviet premier stands up and reluctantly applauds Rocky, and his aides follow suit. Rocky ends his speech while wishing his son watching the match on TV a Merry Christmas and raises his arms in the air in a victory as the crowd applauds. So it's like 2% Jimmy Stewart, 2% Summit 72, Esposito and Bergman, and everybody hated the Russians. He finally respected them. But it was almost like if you would have put some military stuff, it would have been a recruitment film for the U.S. Army. You come out of there wanting to kill every Russian you'll ever see, but it was so much put together. But it was one long video. Because there's a flashback scene, there's a video with a fast car, and it's probably the most ungay movie that you ever seen. There's that much male testosterone going through this movie. I don't think you would need steroids. Now, the biggest problem here, Stallone almost got killed in the movie. Now, the original punching scenes, he said, filmed between him and Dolph Lundgren, are completely authentic. Stallone wanted to capture a realistic scene, and Lundgren agreed that he would engage in a legitimate sparring. One particular forceful Lundgren punch to Stallone's chest slammed his heart against his breastbone, causing the heart to swell. Stallone, who was suffering from labor breathing and a blood pressure over 200, was flown from the site in Canada to St. John's Regional Medical Center in Santa Monica, not St. John, New Brunswick, and was forced into intensive care for 8 days. Stallone later commented that he believed Lundgren had the athletic ability and talent to fight in the pro ranks of the heavyweight division. Now, additionally, Stallone has stated that Lundgren nearly forced Carl Weathers to quit during the filming of their exhibition fight. At one point, the filming of the scene, Lundgren tossed Weathers in a corner boxing ring. Weathers shouted profanities at Lundgren while leaving the ring and announcing he was calling his agent and quitting the movie. Only after Stallone forced the two actors to reconcile did filming continue. The event caused a 4-day work stoppage while Weathers was talked back into the part, and Lundgren agreed to tone down his aggressiveness. Now, if you watch that scene between Lundgren and Weathers, you can see some outtakes from that episode, and I could tell they really didn't like each other. Now, Rocky IV is one of the few sports movies that applies genuine sound effects from actual punches, bona fide training methods created by boxing consultants, and a bevy of other new special effects. The film was recognized as being ahead of its time in the demonstration of groundbreaking high-tech sporting equipment, some of which was experimental and 20 years from public use. Now, Michael Phelps and Ryan Lochte noted that the training sequences in Rocky inspired him to use a cabin similar to what the resourceful Balboa utilized in the film. Now, Apollo Creed's wife, Marianne, made her second appearance in the series. Very good underrated actress, didn't give much more to do. Now, we're talking about the Soviet preview in the skybox during the Rocky Drago match was played by David Lloyd Austin, who also played the double of Gorbachev in The Naked Gun and Russian characters in other films. Now, the soundtrack was quite interesting because Rocky IV is the only film in the series not to feature original music by Bill Conti, and he was replaced by Vince DiCola. However, it does feature arrangements of themes composed by Conti from previous films in the series. Now, at the time, he was too busy with the first two Karate Kid films, but he would return for Rocky V and Rocky Balboa. Now, Conti's famous piece of music from the Rocky series, Gonna Fly Now, does not appear in any of Rocky IV, though a few bars are incorporated in DiCola's training montage instrumental. Now, songs from the movie include, of course, Living in America, and the music by John Cafferty, which is Hearts on Fire, featuring Vince DiCola. Now, Survivor, Kenny Loggins, and Robert Tepper also appear on the soundtrack. Now, 4 of these songs became U.S. chart hits, 3 of which reached the top 5. Go West wrote One Way Street for the movie by request of Sylvester Stallone. Now, Europe's hit The Final Countdown, written earlier in the decade by lead singer Joey Tempest, is often incorrectly stated as being featured in the film, due to its similarity to DiCola's training montage. However, Europe's track was not released as a single until late 1986. Now, according to singer Peter Cetera, he originally wrote his best-selling solo single Glory of Love as the end title for the film, but was passed over by United Artists and instead used as a theme for the Karate Kid Part 2. Now, premiered on November 21st, 1985. Now, the script development also was the subject of a famous copyright lawsuit, Anderson versus Stallone. Timothy Anderson developed a treatment of Rocky IV on spec after the studio decided not to buy his treatment. He sued when the resulting movie script was similar to his treatment. The court held that Anderson had prepared an unauthorized derivative work of the character Stallone had developed in Rocky 1 through 3, and thus he could not enforce his unauthorized story extension against the owner of the character's copyrights. Now, 1 year ago, in August 2020, Stallone announced that a director's cut edition was set for release on November 27 to celebrate the film's 35th anniversary. The director's cut will feature new footage of Apollo Drago. Now, the most notable change in the film is the omission of Apollo's robot. The robot is going to the junkyard forever, no more robot, Stallone commented. Now, Robert Durmick, founder of International Robotics and voice of the robot, commented that Stallone cut all the robot scenes in the director's cut to save money on royalty fees that were given to Dornick in the original cut. Now, the cut missed its previous November 27 release date, though by February 21, Stallone stated it was putting the finishing touches. On April 6, he announced the completion of the cut will begin its theatrical release on November 11th, 2021. So, quite interesting because 36 years later, coming back. Now, the film opened on November 27th, 1,325 screens. It made 127 in North America, states and Canada, and 300 million worldwide, the most of any Rocky film. Now, although The Blind Side made more money in 2009, it only made more money without accounting for inflation. It's also the highest grossing fourth installment of a film in the United States and Canada, which surpassed the record of Southern Impact. Now, Stallone has been quoted as saying the enormous financial success and fan following of Rocky IV once had him envisioning another Rocky movie devoted to Drago in his post-boxing life, with Balboa's storyline running parallel to Drago's. However, he noted the damage both boxers sustained in the fight made them incapable of reason, and thus instead planned Rocky V as the showcase of the dangers of boxing. Now, the film has a bad reputation with the critics, only 40% of Roger Tomatoes. Roger Ebert gave it 2 out of 4 stars, but of course, Gene Siskel loved it. He said, gave 3.5 out of 4, calling it Stallone creates credible villains worthy of their heroic character. Now, Russian goodwill ambassador Katya Licheva objected to the character of Ivan Drago, saying that the film uses him to vilify the Russian people, again the tropes of 72. Now in 2020, Maxim magazine ranked the film's 8 as a list of 12 most delusional films about Russia, noting that cinema takes its grudge against the most unpleasant pre-Gorbachev Soviet realities. Soviet sports and party apparatchiks are portrayed in the film with incredible poison and malice. Now, Lundgren made his career. He received heavy acclaim for his performance as Drago, and he won Best Actor at the Naperville Cinema Festival. And Rocky IV also won Germany's Golden Screen Award for that year. Now, the film swept the raspberries, including Worst Actor, Worst Director, which Stallone, Worst Supporting Actress, Nielsen, Worst New Star, Nielsen, and also for Red Sonja, and Worst Musical Score. It also received nominations for Worst Picture, Worst Supporting Actress, Talia Shire, Worst Supporting Actor, Burt Young, and Worst Screenplay. Now, scholars note that the film's strong yet formulaic structure emphasizes the power of the individual, embodied by Rocky, the prototypical American hero who is inventive, determined, and idealistic. They contrast that with Ivan Drago's hyperbolic characterization as a representation of Soviet power in the context of the later part of the Cold War between 78 and 83. Now, writer-director Stallone highlights the nationalistic overtones of the Balboa-Drago fight throughout the film, such as when Drago's wife claims the United States is filled with threats of violence to her husband. Drago's trainer comments that American society has become pathetic and weak and antagonistic and violent. Drago represents the totalitarian regime, demonstrating his power when he topples an arrogant opponent. Later on, the radio announcer says, Ivan Drago is a man with an entire country in his corner. Scholars note that Drago's ultimate defeat and the Soviet crowd's embrace of Rocky represents the crumbling of the Soviet Union. When the movie was first filmed and came out, Soviets were still pretty well strong, but there was no prediction that by 1989 the Soviet Union would totally collapse because they ran out of money, because they couldn't financially keep up with the West. Not like the current state of Russia, which seems to be more capitalistic than ever before. Now, so Rocky IV has also been interpreted as a commentary on a power struggle between technology and humans, illustrated by both Pauly's robot and the technology utilized by Drago's trainers. Now, the novelization was published by Ballantine Books in '85, of course, with Stallone credited as the author, and Creed 2, of course, came out in 2000. In the late 2000s, with Stallone, Lundgren, and Brigitte Nielsen reprising the roles from Rocky IV. And the plot involves Drago's son Victor fighting Donnie Creed, Michael B. Jordan, for his title as away with his father, Ivan regaining some of the prestige he lost after defeat in Rocky IV. So, I mean, the idea of Rocky IV, which I really, really enjoy, I hope you take it the right way, is the type of movie that America needed after the Iranian crisis, after what was going on with the rebuilding of America from weakness worldwide. And this is the midst of the Reagan era, and that was what the States was like in 1985. It's a movie of its time. In 2021, it would be laughable to a lot of people thinking that Stallone could stop World War III by beating up on a Russian about a foot taller and 20 pounds heavier. Doesn't happen very often. But for the movie itself, I give it 2.5 stars out of 4. But James Brown living in America, That's 5 stars. If you're only going to watch to the movie, wait for James Brown to show up and see how Carl Weathers interprets James Brown's song. And Soul Brother #1. Let me tell you something, boys. When he came out with Living in America, every kid that never heard of James Brown saw that movie. They were literally, I saw people dancing in the halls to this song, and the older crowd was saying, is that James Brown? And I said, it is James Brown. It's like he was away for all these years, because James had no chart presence for quite a number of years, and this was the same time where Little Richard was getting more chart presence. So it was a comeback from the 1960s soul power, or rock and roll. And let me tell you something, Rocky IV should have been subtitled Where James Brown Got His Comeback. Like I said, one of the greatest cameos in the history of movies. That's all I can say. So if you like what we're doing here with our boxing movie podcast, let us know with a comment or like or subscribe. And if you don't like Rocky, tell me why you don't like Rocky. There's 8 movies. If you don't like Rocky, just stop going. Have a good day. Bye.